Okay, well, I think we can start. There are already some people here. So welcome again, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us in this super interesting masterclass with our host, Moritz. Yes, so what I can say about Moritz, I think he has been with Impact Week for a long time, right? Since Mozambique, which was one of the first Impact Weeks. So yeah, great to have your input here. And yes, I think I will just leave the stage for you so you can jump into the topic of today. And yeah, I'm looking forward to hear your input session. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And yes, I'm also very much looking forward to speaking to you and with you. Also very much looking forward because I'm in the preparation for the next Impact Week. Caroline, I think we have a meeting this afternoon. I'm looking very much forward to that, to Yerevan in Armenia. So it's for me also today is a little bit of the first start of this year's Impact Week journey for me. So yeah, looking very much forward to that. Maybe I'll share my screen. If only that's what was so possible there. Yes, so the topic that we have discussed, what I want to talk about today, and where I also will give you a little exercise later. So it's not only consumer mode here, you will be asked to work a little bit later. Is conflict as catalyst, navigating tensions in impact innovation. Maybe a short introduction of myself. Why am I talking about this? I'm a design thinking coach facilitator since many years. I was one of the first prototypes, as we like to say, of the D School. I was in the year 2008, 2009 at D School Potsdam, and have been working with and in design thinking topics since then, basically. But in the last years, I have also started trying to understand how this mindset of design thinking, which from my perspective is very much based in the spirit of co-creation, in the spirit of collaborative problem solving, how this can be used in a conflict context. I have done a training to become a mediator, and I have worked with a lot of teams and organizations where it was all about team building and team development. So that's a little bit my background. And to be very honest, you are also here a little bit my guinea pigs today. I have tried to summarize some of the things that I have learned in a new way. And I'm very, very curious also about your feedback in the end. I hope we all, me included, are taking something away from this session. So first of all, in design thinking, good design thinking tradition, I like to start with a little check-in. As Bernie Roth from Stanford once said, design thinking is hippie shit. So we always think about the superpowers or the strengths of the people. I would like you to think, what's your strength when navigating conflict? As I understood, most of you are probably working as coaches, as facilitators in design thinking. So what's your superpower when working in conflict? And maybe you can post it in the chat. I'll check a little bit. Read stop. That's the superpower. That was the AI. Patience, yes. Listening. Directness and humor, that's a very good one. Listening and being present with the other party. Empathy, humor, listening, empathy. Yes. That's actually one of the reasons why I think design thinking and mediation and these topics go well together, because empathy is a basic skill in design thinking as well as mediation. The rational approach as well. There's also the thinking in design thinking, right? Empathy and humor, trying to understand the other's point of view. Exactly, that's pretty much the definition of design thinking. So here we go. Staying cool. Oh yeah, that's a good one. Maybe we get some more insights from you. What other superpowers are in the room here? Or not, then I will go back to my presentation. If there's anything more coming, I don't think I can see the chat at this. Oh yeah, I can. So yeah, one word, hippie shit. Very good. So I would, for today, first start a little bit of a definition and then maybe give some food for thought where I think we could be confronted with conflict and if or why that is not a bad thing. And then I have a small exercise, which actually I learned this tool just recently or heard about this tool just recently. And I found it quite interesting because it's a very design thinky tool. And so I thought that might be a nice thing for you to work with a little bit. So first of all, let's have a look what actually is a conflict. So the definition can be said as an experience of incompatible goals, needs, values, or perceptions between parties, where at least one side feels that the other side stands in the way of something they need. So that's a kind of a heavy definition. But if we think from a typical design thinking perspective, I'm very sure you as design thinking professionals know my favorite visualization of the design process, which is the design squiggle by Damien, what's his name again? Damien Newman. When we are in the design thinking process, as you all know, on the beginning, in the beginning of the process, there is a lot of confusion. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of going back and forth. And in that uncertainty, it is very easy to come into a situation where you experience something that there's someone in the way of your goals and needs. And so in this situation, when we're working with design thinking, it is even more important that we learn how to deal with that, because this uncertainty creates or can create conflict. And I'm also very sure that some of you are familiar with the concept of psychological safety by Amy Edmondson. And I really like this framework because this can maybe explain why we need to think about conflict and why we need to think about how we deal with conflict. So Amy Edmondson, in her book, The Fearless Organization, differentiates between psychological safety, which is a state where people are ready and willing and feel safe to share their thoughts, their opinions, their needs, their goals. But she always mentions that it's not necessary only to be in that state. This would be like harmony when we feel safe, it's nice, it's comfort. But it's also important to think about accountability and about performance standards. What do we want to achieve? And if we do that, we can have, you as design thinkers know that we love our 2x2 matrices. So we can think about the different zones that we could be in. So if we have an environment where there is low psychological safety, so everyone feels afraid of stating their ideas, their opinions and so on, but there's also no accountability, no performance goal, no ambition, we're in apathy zone. Nothing is going to happen. If we are in a high accountability zone, like a lot of KPIs, a lot of goals and very kind of KPI-driven world maybe, but there's no psychological safety, then we're in the anxiety zone. And as you all know from design thinking workshops and discussions, we are not good at being creative when we're in an anxiety zone. A lot of my friends and colleagues from the design thinking space always tell this story about the like how we were still when we were in caves. And when you get out of the cave, there's the tiger. So you're in an anxiety state. What do? You either run away, fight the tiger, or freeze and play dead. So that's not the perfect situation to be creative. But when we are in a high psychological safety zone, but no accountability, no goals, no ambitions, then of course it's very cozy, but nothing will happen. And innovation and learning can only happen when we're in this fourth quadrant here, where we challenge each other, we give each other goals, and we give each other, we share an ambition, and we hold each other accountable. But at the same time, we also feel comfortable, and this is the definition of psychological safety, feel comfortable to speak up, to offer ideas, and ask questions without the fear of being punished or embarrassed. So I wanted to share this with you just as a kind of an introduction, why I think the topic of conflict is relevant and might be interesting from a perspective of design thinking, especially when you're in the role of design thinking coaching, or I saw Alessandro there as a manager of design teams. So it is important that we talk about conflict and that we kind of become aware of how we can deal with conflict. And as I said, I would like to first share a short kind of framework that could help us to identify on which levels conflict might arise, with a few ideas on what this might mean for coaching and for, if you want, also managing a team. And then later we will come to a very specific tool that helps us to analyze a certain type of conflict. So where do conflicts arise? I also quite recently learned about a framework which I implicitly used all the time, but I never knew where it came from. And now I know or at least the framework has been designed by Ruth Kohn. She was a psychotherapist, Jewish psychotherapist who fled from the Nazis and developed this very humanistic view on the world and wanted to share a methodology or an approach that could help a more humanistic way of solving problems and a more collaborative way of solving problems. And I have used her framework here now to just use it as a compass or as a searching tool for where conflicts, especially in the context of teamwork and especially in the context of innovation or impact innovation, could arise. And her concept is called theme-centered interaction, or themenzentrierte Interaktion in German. And she has these 4 different levels that she looks at: the personal level, so individual needs, individual perspectives; the relational level, the team level, so to speak, group dynamics, and the interaction with each other; the thematic level or the topic level, the content, the task or topic at hand; and last but not least, and that's the thing that usually gets forgotten, the contextual level, which very often we kind of phase out because we are in our workplace, we are professional in our workplace. So things that happen outside in the world don't necessarily, interfere with us, or don't necessarily have a place, let's say, inside the triangle of the work, of the topic that we're working on. And I think this framework can be used to look a little bit at what kind of conflicts might arise when, especially when working with teams on an impact topic. First, of course, the personal level, the struggle within a person. So I defined before conflict as the perspective that one side feels the other side stands in the way. And when we're talking about personal level, then my me and my other me are in conflict with each other and are standing in the way of each other. Maybe I have certain values that are in conflict with the business pressure that I'm feeling. Maybe I have identity conflicts. Maybe my role as a husband interferes with my role as a professional in my work environment. maybe I also have competing inner voices. And this is something that everyone brings to work. And I've worked a lot on transformation projects and innovation projects. And very often the participants or the clients, if you want, in these projects told me, yeah, but why we are here in the professional work? Why do I need to think about the personal level? I think in the context of this framework, it becomes very clear because these three parts, the personal, the relational, and the thematic level, they are in connection with each other and all surrounded by the globe. So this does make a big difference. So when you are coaching a team or leading a team, it is very wise, I would say, to work with values, needs, and emotions. And that's one of the big reasons why I, in my projects, very often start with check-ins, with these topics where we can get to know each other, even in a short meeting like this one, where we will not spend a lot of time together for a long time, but at least to bring in a little bit the personal perspective. And later when you go into a little teamwork, I will also encourage you to do that again, because it makes a difference. And when we think about conflicts, then it makes a big difference because it is important to understand, am I in conflict with myself at the moment? And I'm actually angry about myself because I'm acting in a way that I actually don't want to act like, and which maybe doesn't fit to my my image of myself that I have. Or am I really in conflict with another person, which then would be the relational level. So the question of what's maybe broken between people. Is there an erosion of trust? Is there polarization in the team, different groups that are kind of competing against each other? Are there loyalties hidden and alliances? Is communication really working in that team? And again, here, when you're working as a coach or leading a creative team, there's some little hints, I mean, very, very simple, but working on communications and thinking about trust topics, and especially working on roles, is a very valuable tool. In one project, we developed once a little game. You probably all are familiar with 6-3-5, this brainstorming method. And we turned it into what we called the role roulette, where everyone in the team had to write down answers to certain questions, like 3 questions. Where do you see yourself in your role? What do you think others expect from you in your role? And I don't remember the third one actually at the moment, but there was a third one. And then we handed around these papers and everyone wrote an answer for everyone else and for themselves. And in the end, they got it back. And this, for example, is a really smart, really nice tool, which also gives this kind of 360 feedback of your team, where they see you, where they think you should be in your team. So working on these topics is very important when you have the feeling that we are dealing with a relational conflict. The third level of the framework is the thematic level. And here you could look at this from different angles, and I'm trying to bring it really to the thematic topic. So on the relational level, there might be disagreements on content, but there might be also disagreements within the content, like the little quote I have brought here. So the opposite of a good idea can actually also be a good idea. So there might be a conflict inherent in the topic that you are working with, and it's not necessarily about only the personal perspective that you have, or only about the relation, the communications, but it's actually in the problem itself. And you all, as design thinkers, are very well aware that we use prototyping as a tool to actually deal exactly with this, because especially rapid prototyping, and especially maybe if you know the term dark horse prototyping, so where we try out things that are completely crazy or seem to be crazy, just to learn from them. Because this is something where we can try to resolve these conflicts. And conflicts can be scale versus depth, or speed versus quality, or profit versus purpose. So thematic content conflicts that hinder us from solving the problem in a simple way. And in any design project, these conflicts arise. And whenever they arise, it's very important that the other two angles, like the personal level and the relational level, work well, because otherwise this inherent thematic conflict might be not so easy to resolve. Tools from a coaching perspective is reframing, trade-offs, prototyping. And I have brought a little, advertisement block with me. Together with two colleagues, I created a little game called the Game of Conflicts, which is actually based on the methodology of TRIZ, T-R-I-Z. It's a Russian, very crazy innovation methodology, which, as we assessed it with my two colleagues, is very unsexy in the sense that it is super nerdy, super engineering heavy, and usually deals with long lists of things, very not colorful, very not design-y. And so we try to bring one of the methods that are in that methodology into a game. It's called the Game of Conflicts, and it helps you to playfully identify the conflict first. So here you see a card, one of the cards my friend Roberta Maddalena created. One of the cards, for example, weight of moving object, that's a very technical parameter. But imagine you're working on a technical innovation on a new car, and it's all about saving fuel. And suddenly the weight of the object, and maybe let's say another card might be stability or safety, might be another parameter that you have to think of. And it's not a simple task to resolve that. So we can make the car very light, and then it will use less fuel, but then at the same time, it will not be very safe and not very stable. So this is just a little kind of advertisement block. But if you're interested in that, also feel free to reach out to me. The website is there, and yeah, so you can have a look at that. I said it's a very crazy methodology because it's based on a Russian engineer who analyzed 20,000 patents and came up with exactly these parameters that are here in this card game, but then also with a matrix on how these conflicts can be typically resolved, and that can then help you to create new ideas. But this is the thematic aspect of conflicts. Today, I want to talk more about the other levels that are also addressing or being addressed when we work in a team on an innovation project. The fourth level, the contextual level, of course, another one where conflict may arise. For example, investor expectations, market forces and competition, regulatory constraints, but also it's Ruth Cohen calls this the globe. So it's everything that is outside of your team, outside of the team that is working on this innovation. So also family issues that you're dealing with at home might influence the interaction that you have, the collaboration, the co-creation that you have around the topic. And here it's very important to make this explicit. I mean, this is important for all the conflicts, but especially with this global and contextual kind of area for conflicts, it is important to bring it in, to name it, to be able to speak about it. Working with scenarios can help you doing that. Systemic analysis can do that. And of course, when we're dealing with stakeholders or with shareholders, of course, stakeholder management. This is a very quick run through of the different levels that I see where conflict could become interesting or relevant in a context of an innovation team, of a design team. The challenge about this, or why this is important, is that, like Amy Edmondson said, in order to be in that innovation zone, in that learning zone, we need a certain amount of conflict. So if there is no conflict at all, or there is a perception of no conflict at all, we are in this comfort zone, or maybe even apathy zone. Only when there's some tension, some conflict, then we are really in the learning zone. And so it is important to not push this away. In my experience, in the D school, when I was a student, 2008, 2009, we did a lot of this hippie shit, like Bernie Roth said, a lot of this kind of personal reflection and personal analysis of how we felt and how we were in the process. And this became kind of a second nature to us. And I think everyone who went through this kind of long-term design thinking engagement knows about this and more or less somehow feels comfortable with it. But whenever you deal with new people who are not used to that, it is very difficult sometimes to explain why it is important. And I hope that this framework might help you, or this lens might help you to make it explicit. Why might it be interesting to speak about things that are not only about the thematic topic? Because this is, especially in Germany, I would say, in a professional environment, we love to talk about the content, the topic, whatever the problem that we're solving, and not so much about the relational issues, or not even less about the personal ones. And the globe somehow gets forgotten. That said, unless maybe if there are any questions or anything in between, because this is kind of a quick run through, and then I would come into a more interactive work with you. Any questions, any comments, any experiences from your side? You can also write it in the chat or unmute yourself.
Sorry, this is Carl from Cape Town.
Hi.
Just a quick question around. I mean, you're talking about how to make use of conflict, and I'm sure we'll get there now. But being a devil's advocate, as in actually taking a position that I don't believe in, does that help? Because then how do you backtrack from that within a group when you're actually just telling people that you're not being, you don't actually believe that, but you are just doing it to force people to think?
Yeah, very good question. Thank you. I'm sure many of you know the methodology of Edward de Bono with the different thinking hats. There is one of the thinking hats that is, I don't know which color right now, but there's one of the thinking hats that has the negative hat, maybe the kind of advocate of the devil, if you want. So I would kind of definitely use that, but make it explicit and maybe say, okay, for now, let's maybe even all or just me take on that negative perspective exactly as a tool. It's actually a very good idea as a tool to make that explicit. Another thing that we use a lot in projects, maybe in a not yet conflictive situation, is what is called the pre-mortem, where you think before a project what all could go wrong and what could all not work well. And there it could actually be interesting also to look through this lens and think about what could go wrong on these different levels throughout our project. I don't know if that answers your question, Carl. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, then I'll go back to my presentation. And so the main idea that, or one of the main ideas, besides her very humanistic and life embracing and humanity embracing approach of Ruth Cohen is the idea that disruptions have priority. And this is something that personally I have struggled with a lot in the sense that when I started being a design thinking facilitator, or actually for a long period of time, my agendas for workshops and for projects were very clear, and I had a very clear idea of what I want to do in what time frame. And this leads very often to disobeying this little rule from Ruth Cohen, which is disruptions have priority. Since we are very much so often so focused on the certain time frame that we have and the topic that we're working in, we sometimes, not everyone, I speak from my perspective, I sometimes push through. That's kind of my facilitation style. I think I like to motivate and energize my teams, but that sometimes leads to maybe overlooking a more quiet perspective, or might lead to not giving enough time to a disruption that actually would be meaningful. And so that's, I think, a learning process that I'm also personally still in, but that I think many of us have to go through when we are dealing with these pressures that come from these different levels, especially when we think about global level, like the outside level, the contextual level, where maybe, like we said, maybe stakeholders, shareholders, investors, whoever are pushing us and are creating pressure. And then taking the time to actually using disruptions as priorities, and using disruptions as a hint to where we can maybe work through conflict in order to come to a better view of the problem that we're working on, or better collaboration as a team, is not so easy. I have created a little kind of case study, very simple case study that I would like to give you, where I would like you to take the time. There is a disruption happening in a team, and I would like to give you the time in a few minutes in small teams to use that case study and use a certain tool that I will introduce to analyze that and maybe come to some interesting insights, hopefully. So the case study is very simple. There is a kind of a startup that came out of a design thinking program. This team, HealthBridge, developed a mobile app connecting elderly patients in rural areas with volunteer health companions. And they are now at a crossroad because a large health insurance company wants to license the platform. Actually, I have coached a startup that has a similar problem, but yeah, this is fictional, so no real people involved. The founding team is split. CEO Lena sees this as the breakthrough they need to scale, and CTO Marcus fears it will destroy the community-driven soul. There's a little bit of, this is, so to speak, there are personal levels, there are relational levels. There's also a little bit of, how to say, contextual level, because the pilot funding runs out in 3 months. So there's not too much time to think this through and to fight over this too long. There needs to be a decision and then to go in a certain direction. Also, the user research showed that trust and personal relationships are very important in this field. And the team members, 2 team members who actually joined for this kind of community spirit, threatened to leave the company because if that will be done. What I would like you to do now is to think from the perspective as a coach or leader, whatever you see yourself in, coaching this team. And I have especially the team of the CTO and the CEO, and would like you to think, to understand what is behind that. And now come in your superpowers. I read listening, I read empathy, and the tool that I brought here today is called the onion model. Maybe one of you or the other knows it also, but I really, really like it for analyzing conflict. And also because it's a visual framework, so it's in design thinking, we love those, I guess. This tool thinks about each person like an onion, and the person expresses what we see outside, what we hear when someone states their opinion, very often are positions. So I am of the position, like Lena, we have to take the insurance deal. It's our only path to scale. That's her position. But now, if we stay on these position levels, they seem to be very non-compatible, right? They don't fit together. We have to take this insurance deal position versus I won't build a system that turns our volunteers into gig workers. Doesn't work together. What the onion model can help us with, and I'm very curious to see if it will help you, is to analyze a little bit more what lies behind this position. Behind the position, what is the interest of the person? What is Lena's interest that lies behind her position? And then behind the interest, what are her needs? Since you all work with design thinking, you are very well kind of aware of what the difference might be. So interests is still a little bit deeper than positions. It's what do they want? Their wants, if you want to call it that. And the needs are what do they really need to feel okay. You probably have heard of Maslow's theory of needs, and you can think of these kind of very basic human needs that you have, which is not only food and shelter, but also things like what's it called in English? Self-development or personal development, social belonging, and these topics. And what I would like you to do now is, there's something in the chat, I guess. Let me see. Self-fulfillment. Oh yeah, thank you. What I would like you to do is think around this case study a little bit in small groups. The thing that I have seen work in mediations, in team development processes is that when we are stuck on that position level, we will be stuck. But the moment we manage to get to needs, interests, but then also needs, and maybe also filled with emotions, that's where we can actually find a common ground and then also find solutions. So it's kind of deep diving down and then diving up again. So I would like you to go into the breakout group, maybe like 20 minutes or so. We can see. Actually, my numbers here don't add up. I think I thought 30 minutes, 30 minutes maximum. But I will look around a little bit. I hope it's possible that I can maybe jump the different. Yeah, cool.
Yes, it should be possible.
Perfect. And then I share my other screen again because I prepared a little mural board for you. And I will share the link in the chat in a moment. So what I would like you to do, go into the team rooms. You will, I think also on Zoom, you have a number like your room 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think we can do it in an automatic way that the people are put
yes,
automatically.
I think they should have received the invite, right? Can you please tell me, people, if you're right? Okay, perfect.
So then look at the number that your room says and occupy that space. Maybe take a little bit of time to write your names and maybe you're all experts, so do a little check-in into the group. I put this framework back here, but it's not so important. I put the case study back here, and then I put especially this onion model. My color coding is not ideal, so I switched to orange, but you can use any other color. So think about the positions of Lena and Marcus, and maybe even not only, like I put some post-its here, but don't only use two. Think a little bit around, discuss, brainstorm, think what could be interests that are behind what they are saying and what would be needs. And then, since we are talking to coaches, please try to find an overlap there. So can you find things where they actually could agree on the needs level, maybe? And can you create a coaching question that you, as a leader of that team, as a manager of that team, or as a coach of that team, would ask them to continue their work and to kind of go into a constructive dialogue so that they can resolve that tension and work through the conflict. Any questions? So many left. Oh God, they have to work.
I think they are already in the breakout rooms.
Oh, okay,
That's why we don't
better.
see them here. So maybe you want to go maybe to each single room and have a look what is happening.
Yes.
Let's see. Perfect.
I see some smiles. Can I see some smiles? Benjamin is also back. I hope you can hear us. Is that Nora behind the N?
Oh, Mukta is there.
Yes, I saw her also. Big hugs around the world. Great. I think the breakout rooms are closed again, right?
Yes, they are.
Okay. So then I'm very curious to hear, maybe I will share my screen and your team can very quickly share with us what you have come up with. Maybe you have created a question or not, but very quickly, maybe 2-3 minutes, share with us what you have discussed. And if you have an intervention, a coaching question that you want to share with us. Team, yeah.
I mean, I can share, and then anyone in the team feel free to jump in and add or correct me if I'm wrong. The discussion. So first of all, in the looking at the onion model, we started from the assumption that the position was already defined by the 2 sentences that you provided, and that's where we started, right? So that's why we worked mainly on the interest and the needs. And there has been a substantial alignment. We have some clear clusters where we were like, for example, looking at the position of Marcus, which is the one who is a little bit defensive, as we can see. So staying true to the initial vision, stick to the initial plan, do not betray the users. We're interested that we could find behind this position. Then also a resistance to change. Not wanting to things to change. That's typical of IT people, technical people, right? Never change a running system. So
that's the designer.
Protect what they build. That's usually what. And also another thing which could be more concrete is also do not give up what they have built, right? So the IP and the learnings behind what they've built so far. And on the other hand, looking at Lena. Definitely, it was an interesting point, like stressing the fact that she thinks this is a unique and necessary opportunity. So it's also like the urgency, the sense of urgency. This is train we shouldn't let pass, right? On one end. And then we had like the continuity of the business was one cluster that we identified as an interest. And then also for sure on the other hand, the growth of the company, like increase their wins, go beyond the pilot, make it real, scales to stabilize, transition basically, make it concrete from what a startup, a pilot is to something real. And that's where we shift then to the needs, right? So that the needs for Lena are definitely like growth, success, scalability, make it real, play with the big ones because an insurance it means a lot of money. So start to make it very, very big and strong. And on the other hand, for the financial security for the company too, because there is also this interest from a CEO point of view, definitely also for the people working with them. And on the other hand, the CTO instead looking at the stability of the product, the ownership is definitely a need. I own it, and I don't want this to be taken up by somebody else. The trust, the honesty that they feel like the value that they give to their users, and then the identity staying true to themselves, and the fact that the concept stays untouched. It was interesting, and then unfortunately Danny had to leave, but she brought up this white post-it as a point that they could have in common, which is the safety, but from two different point of views. Like a safety in a way that the safety for the product and the safety for the company, meaning in a financial or in a technical way. And that's where I also do not want to take too much space and rather say if there is any other comment coming from the team, I would think that would be good to have now.
Cool. Thank you. Maybe we can hear from the other teams also, and then look at it again from the perspective of what question we could ask as coaches when we deal with this kind of a situation. How about Mika, Miranda, and Carl?
Okay, I'm going to jump in here. Yeah, clearly the difference between an experienced coach and three people that are quite new to this, and Micah, who has done the coaching before. We did have some technical difficulties as well around Micah's on his phone, so he couldn't actually open up this board, and Miranda was having a lot of technical issues as well, so we were having to work through text. So discussions were a bit slow, and so it was just me whacking away on my keyboard trying to not make too many bad spelling mistakes. So if we just have a look through here, I think sorry, where are we now? Just getting lost on this form here.
Am I on the right?
No. Yeah, you're on the right one. Yeah. So we were, I think the two, Micah brought up the interesting point where we're really looking at mindsets here, and so who's at Lena has very much a growth mindset, and she I assume she is wanting the company to grow, whereas Marcus has a fixed mindset. The question is, I was challenging Micah on that is I don't know, if those mindsets, whether they needs or interests, didn't quite know where they would fit in the onion model. But it was felt that it should go into the needs category, needs circle. We certainly focused on Lena a bit more, and then as we started looking at Marcus, our time ran out. But the interests for Lena were personal financial security. I mean, maybe they just want to be better than a school friend. They're just kind of wanting to outcompete somebody. There's reputation and kudos. Again, that point that was made, it's very much a growth mindset, and sustainability and scale, because the company is getting to the end of its funding cycle, and this is some kind of security. We didn't really have much chance to discuss Marcus's drivers, but what we came down to is the coaching question is around Marcus is trying to carry on looking after the elderly people in his program, and Lena is also wanting to look after the elderly people within her program, and I think that is the commonality that as coaches we could capitalize on and just sort of unpack that common need. Both people are passionate about wanting to look after their elderly patients. They just have different ways of seeing that. That's all we managed to get done in this frustratingly short time that design thinking always seems to give people to work on stuff. So, yeah, thanks.
Sorry for that, and thanks for taking the short time. Yeah, that's a great point. If, like, on a technical note, if wanting to help people is a need or an interest, maybe you could discuss that. Also, very interesting question about the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. That's actually, I haven't thought of that. Maybe that's a different category altogether, but that's I think a very interesting perspective, which I also didn't think of when I created the case study. So very interesting. And exactly that's the point. Like, they have such a big thing in common. They want to help the elderly. They have this kind of passion for this impact topic. And it's only about the way to get there that they have to work on. Yeah, cool. Okay.
Micah, I don't know if Micah's got anything else to contribute here, or the other members of the group, either through text or voice.
There's something in the chat, actually. Oh, no, people have been leaving. Yeah, okay.
Okay. Thanks very much.
Thank you. And we have the group with Carmen, Lydia, Fritz, Friedrich, and Benjamin. Who would like to tell us more?
I can start and the other just add. We were thinking, or the wrap up was, they are not that far from a site, like, because what you just said, they want to make this impact and want to go forward with it. It's just the way how. So from looking at their interests, Lena is the one. She is like, I mean, if you want to scale as a startup, at some point you need money. There's no other way to for scaling. So she wants to make sure they have enough funding and budget, and the financial interest and the cash out one day. And she wants the company to be financial healthy. And I think what we thought from the interest from Marcus behind his position, that he's maybe a bit scared to have someone else there who is like kind of controlling him, or having an advisory board and losing the flexibility and the startup mentality and way of working and everything. So he's a bit afraid of the change coming, and wants to be more or keep the control. But from their need, so they have a common ground for sure. And this would be like kind of the question, and that's where we ended, because we spent too much time on chicken at the beginning. So Fritz or Lydia, if you want to add something, we would like ask questions where we force them to identify what is the thing they have in common, what is their common goal, and then to see from there how we can reach that.
Great, thank you. Would you think that, or no, let's first hear the last group, and then we talk a little bit more on a meta level. Mukta and Aishwarya and Lorraine.
Aishwarya, you want to go ahead, please?
Yeah. So we started with the interest. So we thought that, okay, as a CEO, she wanted the startup to keep running, and now that just 3 months were remaining, so they had to scale up the whole startup. So that were the interest which CEO had, as or to the CTO. He wanted to keep the value system and the core idea why the startup is initially built upon. So that should not be deviated. And the main purpose was to serve the community, and that should not be taken over just because when the money concept comes in. So that was the core interest which we thought Marcus had in this one. And the overlapping needs were to keep the startup running for no matter what, because even for Lena, the initial ideas were to be the elderly community has to be benefited from this, and that should not be taken away. So that is a common need which we saw in both of them. And just to add on, the further discussion went through that what could be the feasible solution where both the questions has to be answered is the insurance company should be used as a tool and not the main decision maker in this one. Hence the community driven soul for the volunteers both of them should be the decision maker. Just use the needs and give them a trial period of 1 year and see what are the benefits they are getting. And since they're a startup, they can always get more funding and find more investors in the long run. But since they already have an option and they are on the deadline of 3 months, we thought they should take up the insurance company benefits and just use them as a tool. That was the main conversation we had. Like, they should not deviate the whole core values of the startup, and which would eventually bring in more authentic volunteers, where they would not come in saying the name or for the benefits, the additional, it just to serve the purpose for the startup. So that's how our conversation went around.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So this basically means it's already like an idea how this could be resolved on that level. That's very
I think we jumped the gun a little and we got into a bit of the solutioning.
Oh, that's perfectly fine. Great. So let me just share my screen. We have 7 more minutes. So just to quickly play. No, sorry, I stopped my presentation, so I had to restart it again. So we spoke about this already a little bit, but I would like to look at the last question here. How could we use this when working with impact innovation teams? And maybe we can have a short reflection on that. So do you think this tool, like the onion model, or this whole kind of looking at conflicts as a tool for catalyzing some new options, some new ideas, in this case, the startup that develops itself into something new, how this could be maybe helpful when in your work with your innovation teams? Any perspectives on that? Mukhtar.
Yeah, I think this is a very, seems like a very clear, rational model, which should appeal to both the parties, because you go layer after layer, keep going deep dive into it until you find those common things. So in that sense, I think it will be more acceptable to both the parties. As a coach, you could use this tool in a more effective manner without really ruffling the feathers of both the parties in that sense. So I think in that regard, it is indeed a pretty good tool.
Thank you. Maybe also the question how you could use this tool in the coaching when you're working with this innovation team, or could, if and how. Or if not, also fine.
Well, I think from my point of view, what always resonates with me, at least, is to give things a name, right? And I think that's the unpacking from the position to the interest and to the very deep need The need as a name that's also what we were addressing in our team. That the fact is that the position is a sentence, the interest is usually a shorter sentence. Need is really a name, a label, something that and that's the most profound thing. And that's where it's easier when peeling it off. It's easier to find a common ground, right? So that's where those solutions were found in the different teams. So for me, that's where it's more sufficient. And it's also, especially in teams where people do not talk all the same language, not all at the same level, it's good to bring it down to have a common language. And the easiest is a name. This is safety, this is stability, this is growth. Those are the things we can, and then we do have maybe different perception of things, but we can find that common ground in that label. That's at least what I see the power of this method.
Thank you. And Carl, you have written, it allows people, like when I have an innovation team, I think that is very useful philosophy. It allows people to hold their position and still reflect on their needs. That's actually an interesting perception, because you could use this as a reflection tool for you as a coach, like you use it alone in your little room at night when you cry, or you use it to give it out, to hand it out to like in this case, Lena and Marcus, and they can think about it and maybe reflect. That makes them already reflect. Or you could even do it as a co-creation exercise like you did just now. But the last version, I think, would only work in a really psychological safe environment where people will be happy to share their needs and get vulnerable also around that. But if that's the case, then it's actually I think it can be a very good tool to share and to also get to know each other better on a different level. Because in this case, they have founded the company together for, like you all interpreted, for a good reason and for a good purpose. So they also have a lot of common ground together, and this could help them to maybe refine that common ground. So since we have 2 more minutes left, I would just like to, we will send you this presentation also, right? From my perspective, that's fine. One word in the chat, what do you take away from this session? And then please also connect with me on LinkedIn, whatever. I left Instagram and Facebook, unfortunately. So I think that, I don't know if that was a good decision.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh, yeah, so my point, I don't know where I was when people were saying their points. So mine, the tool is actually important because I'm thinking of also using it in programming. When I'm programming activities for the community in a concept of a CBO or a local organization. So yeah, it's also very important because I'm already thinking that my team members need to know this, and we need to, we need to use it when we are thinking of which kind of activities we want to use. So looking at those concepts, I think when we use it that way, pointing out all the needs and interests, it will be of great use to us. Yeah.
Thank you. Happy to hear that.
Lorraine is my name, those who don't know. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So one last, what do you take away from the session? One last check out in the chat. Conflict Onion, helpful method too, which I'll definitely try out soon. Thank you, Carmen.
Thank you.
Refreshing. Thank you. I love the perspective as the exercise was great. Thank you. Happy to hear that. Okay, while you can still write your reflections in the set of reflection, no need to avoid conflict when you know how to handle it. Oh yeah, that's a very good one. Thank you. I'm happy if that came across. Thanks for the tool. Yes, thank you very much for taking the time and joining us here. Caroline, or I don't know if you want to say some last words. was a great joy, and I'm looking forward maybe to see some of you in future Impact Week masterclasses or actual Impact Weeks.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining, everyone. Thank you so much, Dada, for setting up the call together with Moritz, and for you, of course, to volunteer your time. I think everybody found it really helpful, and of course, we'll share the recording and also the slides once you send it to us in our community, so you can access it at any time. I also shared Moritz's LinkedIn if you want to connect with him in the chat. And yeah, thanks everyone. If you want to see Moritz live, you can find him at the Impact Week in Armenia in June. So yeah, thanks everyone, and have a good afternoon.
Thank you too. Bye bye.